Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next The Dragon Prince video. So I'm going to be continuing my initial watch through of The Dragon Prince Book 4 Earth here with my review for episode 5, 6 and 7. These are The Great Gates, The Drakewood and Beneath the Surface. These were an interesting group of episodes in that it really, to me, these were the episodes that made it clear that, okay, we are doing something very specific in Book 4 Earth, and it is very clear now that the big things that we're talking about here are very much not going to happen until Season 5, 6, maybe even 7. And that this is the way Dragon Prince is kind of broken up. These 9-episode seasons don't feel like a full season. It's very much, I think, I'd say 4, 5, and 6 are probably like a contained story. We know 7 is now sort of included in that, but I'm guessing it still is more or less the finale to whatever the 4, 5, and 6 like lead up to. So the idea of like we're on this mission to find all these clues to where Arvos is, and with 2 episodes to go, we still haven't got to the dragon that has basically our second piece, meaning there are still like 4 other pieces that we don't know about. So it's just highlighting that, like, okay, we are not accomplishing as much in this book as we maybe thought we were. And that's always going to be a challenge. When you come back after 3 years with very minimal content in the gap, and you only get 9 episodes, and it doesn't deliver on like absolutely everything. But I think just getting that realization of like, okay, the finale of Book 4 is leading up to meeting Rex Igneous and whatever we do here. There is still some good character stuff going on otherwise. But I would also say is that I don't think everything is fully like working as such. Like, I'm still finding myself relatively frustrated by how they're doing the Callum and Rayla plot. I suppose it's a relatively realistic kind of approach to it, but I don't like how they have handled the Rayla was away for 2 years. Apparently accomplished like nothing, is telling us nothing about what she did in those 2 years. And yes, there's talk, there's discussion about, what way to handle this. Soren and Rayla have a talk, Callum and Ezran have a talk, and like I get it, like it's made clearer to them like what the situation is. It seems like their relationship is slowly kind of healing, just as they kind of in general interact, but obviously they're not back to the way they were at the end of last book just yet. And in that sense, like I understand, like it's meant to be awkward, and I guess it's going to be that way up until probably the finale. I doubt they'll continue it into the next book, but we'll see. And then we're just waiting for like the kind of moment for them to actually like properly get back together, just because it is frustrating to have a lot of their dialogue scenes be like, oh, they're talking normally, then they realize they're talking normally and just kind of awkwardly look away, and they're talking about things, but then they won't just talk about the actual like core issue. It's a bit weird. Like, I see where they're kind of gradually going, in that they're building, sort of teasing a little bit of this arc of like Rayla has failed. She feels like her 2 years away was a failure, though it was a very offhanded comment about that, and they're not really addressing it all that much. With Callum, it's almost this weird one where like, okay, at the end of episode 4 he was overtaken by Arvos, but I don't really feel like it's that much of an arc, and I'm feeling a little bit of a disconnect between that's your reasoning behind like, okay, you're vulnerable to Arvos, so almost out of nowhere he asks Rayla to like kill me if he overtakes me. Now admittedly, the way they go with this approach is that Rayla is like, no, you're overreacting in a way. And I thought that was ultimately the right way to do it. But it also feels like, is that an arc? I don't even know what you're kind of like building towards here. And there's just a sense, I think, like Rayla, Callum, you would say, like, kind of the two main characters, basically. They've been a little lost, lacking direction so far this book. And, like, obviously there's still 2 episodes to go. I haven't watched episode 8 or 9 yet, but I'm waiting to see what actually happens here. But right now, I just kind of feel like, what are we doing? What are we building towards? Ezran comes back into things, and he's been, I think, very solid throughout the season. Zim ends up coming back. The whole thing of, like, they go to find Rex Igneous. They try to go in basically through the front door. There's the 2 funny guards, which are like magical golem creatures. But when they open the doors, it's completely, like, blocked off. You know, that's fine. So they have to take the secret entrance that a big giant dragon like Zubeia can't go through. So she leaves, and it's revealed that Zim kind of sneaks off and kind of joins the group. And so we're all, you know, basically heading for the Drakewood. And so, yes, it does turn out to, I think, basically be the case that both sides are being guided towards the same place. So they're both trying to find Rex Igneous. And along the way, we get some explanation of the whole, like, Earthblood elf situation. What's it called? The Drake Riders or whatever. And that's nice enough. I thought the little kind of mini arc of, like, Soren actually gaining a, like, dragon Drake mount himself was actually, like, relatively well done. I like seeing Soren kind of thriving in a way, being kind of free from his family, and then it's what made the last kind of couple of episodes be very dramatic, seeing him out of nowhere almost just randomly meet up with Claudia, and then the cliffhanger going into episode 8 is that he finds out his father is alive again. In the middle of all this, the other big kind of reveal that happened, I think this is something that was only ever talked about in the novelization, I think, for was it the first or the second book? I forget. But the mention that a big part of the reason their mother left was the aftermath of Viren using dark magic to save Soren's life at some point when they were much younger. So Claudia actually references that when they're having that discussion about basically the pros and cons of magic. And again, it's Soren on, like, the right side of things, realizing that there's peace, you can have relationships with elves, dragons, it's fine, and dark magic is the problem. Now, of course, the issue here is that we haven't exactly been told what Arvos' like core plan is, in that, okay, he's going to cause chaos and attempt to accomplish something that relates to power. But we don't exactly know what he's trying to do. So it does leave that slight opening for Claudia to realistically argue the idea of, well, he gave us magic. He's the only reason humans are in this, like, decent position. And that is something from the past that I feel the series probably should explore a little bit more. And that is the idea of, why aren't humans connected to any primal magic source? Why are they different? Why have they, in a way, been left out? What has caused this, and why specifically do Zadians and stuff like that look down on them for this very reason? It feels like there has to be something more that kind of comes out of this. And of course, we have 4 books here to explore Arvos, and the idea is that it's going to be a while before we actually free him, just because unless they skip ahead and are like, one clue immediately reveals it, it does feel like we will have to find at least 1 or 2 other clues from the archdragons. So that's kind of what we're waiting for on that side of things. So that conversation was quite interesting, because you're seeing kind of Soren get, like, sucked back into the family dynamic. It's going to be fascinating to see what he talks about with his father and how exactly that goes down. But they've obviously are at the point now where they've basically caught up. The hero characters are ahead, but now obviously everyone's in roughly the same vicinity. The other thing we get here is quite a few scenes of Terry talking to Viren, which are reasonably well done. The main thing that kind of ends up happening here, and this is something that like I remember having heard about this character going into the book, but I was almost surprised that it didn't get brought up until this point, which was Terry revealing that he's trans, basically. And I thought the reveal was actually, like, I think decently well done. There's always going to be some debate about, like, do you focus on it more and make it a core point of the character, or is that not or is that not the right thing to do because it's focusing on like a trait of a character too much, and it should be the character should be characterized by a lot of other different aspects. I think this was the right way to do it, where you make it very clear this is the case, the characters are talking about it, and I think especially him saying it to Viren was actually an interesting choice within the scene, and to have him actually sort of like support Terry on the idea of mentioning like, this is the name that I chose for myself, was an interesting one. Now I still feel kind of like the fact that they haven't referenced what Rayla was up to. I'm not the biggest fan of how they haven't so far referenced how Claudia met Terry. Now, they're obviously saying the whole like Drakewood thing. I'm from the place right in the middle of the uncharted like territory, basically. Right now, we're just kind of speculating on what the deal is there. But at the end, of course, a lot of the characters are kind of like together. We are basically right at the door to, I suppose, meet Rex Igneous. So that's going to be interesting, because all they said about him in the earlier episodes was like, basically, don't annoy him. He's just very easily like annoyed, and he'll use his powers at the slightest, call, basically. So, they're kind of talking like, oh, he's a grumpy character. So it's going to be interesting to see how exactly this goes. And if they can get through to him at all. There is, of course, the unique dynamic of, like, they are trying to get the clue, not to actually, like, use it to find where Arvos is, but just to keep it away from other people. And if the clue is just, like, a piece of information rather than, like, an object, that is an interesting kind of point in all of this, because it's almost, like, better that it's just not said and that no one knows it. So that's going to be kind of some of the reveals about what the clues that they each know and what exactly they are, as well. The plot that I thought was probably, in a way, like going into these group of episodes that I wasn't expecting to be so well done, was the resolution to the whole conflict between the two people in the camp. Was it Lucia and then the Sun Elf? And of course, yes, it gets brought up, and Amaya and Janai have to deal with this. And Janai is effectively, like, I wouldn't say manipulated, but she's basically like put into a situation where, like, okay, like, I have to do this in a somewhat traditional way. We have to have a trial, a tribunal is what they call it. We have to do it traditionally. And the setup going in is that the traditional punishment for a breach of this sacred ritual is death. And so you're going in like expecting, like, will she end up kind of doing something that causes a rift between her and Amaya? Because Amaya is not going to agree to Lucia being killed over what happened here. Now, there is a little bit of a thing of, like, a discussion ahead of time of, like, again, Amaya even makes a little bit of a joke about how, wait, you're going to kill her for putting out a candle? Which is being obviously very dismissive of an important part of their culture. But I didn't like how in the middle of all of this, the fact that her hands got burnt was just like a completely, like, unexplored point. Like, it doesn't seem to matter that this guy, like, attacked her over this, that the breach of this kind of ritual was more than him, like, burning her hands quite badly, and there was just no exploration of that. And so you eventually got to the point where you sort of knew when she went up to her, like, okay, she's not going to cut her hands off. And in the end, she made the right choice. And I thought it was actually a really reasonable decision that I think most people ended up like agreeing with, and it was just her brother who doesn't seem to like the the new approach, just because it's new and not traditional. Which was that, okay, you will be punished, but your punishment is to basically use your skills, and in a way, in the process, learn about our culture and make this shrine where we can do that ritual safely in our current sort of conditions. And it was just like perfectly logical, made complete sense. They'll be learning from basically all sides. It is still a punishment, but it's not an extreme punishment, and it's relatively reasonable, and it worked out, I think, pretty well. And she does her best to try and like get her brother kind of on her side by showing that like there is hope for the future. Yes, it'll take a long time. It won't be in our lifetime when we get back to the way things were. And that seems to be the issue for him, is that the tradition is being lost with the current situation, and that he won't be there to like basically like be in charge for a new era for the for the Sunfire Elves. And they had their interesting reveal where, I guess, I don't know, like, are they married or not? I don't know what the situation is, but either way, his girlfriend or wife, they now seem to just be kind of openly plotting to what seems like get rid of Janai. So we'll see what way that plays out, in that there's 2 episodes left to do quite a lot. Will we see that actually happen here or not? I'm not really sure, because I'd be shocked if he goes as far as to try and like kill his sister. But if he does something like, I suppose he gets like loyalists on his side and basically just does like a coup or something like that and takes over that way, that I think is probably a decent way to do it. That way you take sort of Janai and Amaya out of being sort of locked into this position and dealing with the kind of the peace plot basically between the races, and allow them to be involved in kind of like other aspects of the plot. It depends on what exact way they want to go with this, in terms of like when is the wedding and stuff like that. There's a few interesting points like that I'm eager to see how they exactly kind of pan out. But like I was saying, I thought it was a bit kind of quick and brief, the whole kind of like Earthblood elf things, that we're not really exploring it like that much, because like Terry's not talking about that stuff all that much. He's, I suppose, through him you're at least getting to see what the Earth kind of power is, and that we see like vine control and stuff like that is quite interesting. But otherwise, like the writers didn't feel like that great of characters. We do have the kind of new kind of younger character here, Nathan, who actually seems quite decent. He seems like an expert on more magical aspects of all of this. He's guiding them. He doesn't... I guess the setup for him is that he's being forced to be a dragon rider, whereas he actually, I guess, feels more like a mage. And there's a little bit of sort of that kind of Callum arc here of he actually feels like he's more likely to go down this road than be the warrior dragon rider type thing. So, you know, he's been pretty fun, but it was sort of surprising how, you know, not massively interesting the trip through the underground really was, and that like, okay, the thing with the crystals was kind of interesting just because it's like, it's a very visually kind of stunning area. And they explain that there are numerous crystals, like there's just a lot of them, for 5 out of the 6 primal magic types, with the explanation coming out that there is not a common crystal, basically not a common easy way to use star magic. in that there is technically a crystal that has it. It's called like a, oh god, what was it? It was like it was a nebula diamond or something like that. Quasar, I think, might have been quasar diamond or something like that. Something space related diamond, and that they're extremely rare. There's only like 3 of them in the entire world, and so Callum is like, so wait, like you basically can't really use star magic that much. What's up with that? So that is going to be an interesting one in terms of like, how does Callum gain that magic then? The only option, I guess, would be if he somehow finds a way to connect with the kind of star arcanum, whatever way that happens. Because obviously the star magic is implied to be like super like mysterious and interesting. Like they're literally talking about like they are from other planets and so on. So there's a lot of mysteries that surround that. And on that topic, I think the one little casual kind of blink and you'll miss it almost scene with Stella, Rayla's kind of monkey new character, she opens up like a portal, drops a crystal into it and just closes it. And only Bait really seems to notice that this actually happened. And they don't show that like the crystal just comes out somewhere else. So it seems to be that Stella has this power to basically have her own like kind of pocket dimension type thing. Because obviously I think we know that Stella is like star arcanum related, like it's star magic that she's using. So has that been put on like a different planet? Does that portal link to wherever Aravos is? That would be a little bit simple for the explanation, but is it related? That seems like an interesting point. And then I think that's nearly everything from these episodes. Yeah, like I just say that like I enjoyed these middle episodes, but it definitely kind of brought you down to earth that, okay, yeah, we're not doing everything in book 4. Book 4 is pretty much just the plot to get to Rex Igneous, which is smaller than you maybe think it's going to be. And I suppose it just puts a little bit of pressure on, okay, when is season 5 coming out? We know it's not going to take 3 years. It probably won't even take a full year, but like, how many months away is season 5? That's going to be a kind of important thing, I think, just to show the trajectory is here. That, okay, we're back into the Dragon Prince. There are 4, books. You've got one of them here, 3 left. What's the continuity going to be like on this in terms of how long do we actually have to wait for the next one? In that, is it going to be summer 2023? So we're waiting maybe like 7-8 months or something like that, or will it actually be maybe sooner? If it was at all possible, I would prefer that like it's somewhat early next year, and then you maybe have a little bit of a maybe bigger gap if you need it between 5 and 6 ahead of the final 2 seasons, which are maybe a little bit more grouped together. But we'll see how they do it. So yeah, they're my thoughts on these episodes. I'm going to head off now and watch the final 2, and then I'll come back and review them. But let me know your thoughts. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.